Where do emotions come from, and what are they? All right, that's the question for today. How's everyone doing out there? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Thomas, and welcome to my channel. I do educational videos on many different topics. Most of them are academic-related topics, but they have a more spiritual perspective informing them, more quantum perspective informing them, and so they try to get at kind of the basics more. A lot of times, even though the subject is very familiar, the teachings will not be, and a lot of times you have to be able to unlearn what you've already learned. I teach things, mathematics, geometry, history, economics, health and fitness, chemistry, astronomy, psychology, philosophy. These classes are all, classes that you probably already have taken, but I try to approach them from a different level that has a more spiritual approach. So it's going to be a lot of material we're going to be covering later on in this course. So at the beginning, we want to set the groundwork with a thorough study of the tree of life. Now, if we can learn the tree of life, it's really an elaborate mnemonic device, and it's akin to a computer. And so, like the memory of a computer. And so you are able to, if you can really grasp the tree of life, you will be able to assimilate large amounts of information afterward. So the tree of life, in addition to being a great tool in and of itself, it is also a great tool to help you learn other subjects. So that's where we're starting, and this is the diagram here for the tree of life. You've probably seen it before. You may recognize it as the Hebrew Kabbalah, and the ancient Hebrews did use this diagram. It goes back though to at least ancient Egypt, and probably before, and more or less it's just a map of our consciousness. You can see that it's got 10 different circles that are numbered 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're connected by 22 different lines. There's also a thing here called the abyss, an implied circle, and there's a 0 at the top above the tree. And so these are basically the 12 categories, if we kind of ignore for now the lines, because the abyss is really kind of a surrogate for the lines. And so we have a total of 12 different categories, and these are more or less our faculties of consciousness. So to enumerate our faculties of consciousness, we really want to start here at the bottom. The universe is really created in this direction as involution, and then we start here at the bottom and we evolve in this direction, evolution. So we start here at the bottom at the 10th sphere. This is really our survival, our instinct. So that's our faculty of consciousness for the 10th sphere, instinct, survival of the fittest, kill or be killed, the law of the jungle, fight or flight response. And then it also just has to do with basically our life force. This is our, keeping us alive regardless of our conscious intent. Now, our conscious intent, when that takes over, it serves as a negative 10th sphere. So like if we have addictions or lusts of the body, defilements of any kind, that serves to kind of erode or decay or destroy our life force. So that is a negative 10th sphere. The positive 10th sphere, we don't have to do anything. It jumps to our defense immediately, and it keeps us going all the time, keeps our heart beating, and keeps our organs eliminating waste and that kind of thing. Okay, then if the 10th sphere is really like our wild animal, the 9th sphere comes up to be our domesticated animal. This is our domestic situation and the domestic sphere, the night sphere. And this is, really the first few years of our lives where we are, encountering all kinds of new things. And we're living in the home, and we're being cared for. We develop a certain amount of devotion to our caregivers. But we also use them as our primary influences. So we watch what they do intently. We stare at them and marvel at what they're doing, and eventually we start to try to imitate what they're doing. It usually doesn't work out very well. We usually fall on our face or fail the first time, but we keep at it, and we practice that imitation. We practice what they do over and over and over again until we at least get like kind of a facsimile of what they've done. So the night sphere is all about learning heightened receptivity. It's also about nurturing, but in the domestic environment, a heightened receptivity along with a imitation and then repetition and then memorization. And then in addition, we've got that nurturing and that devotion aspect also that comes out in the home. Okay, then when we go to the A sphere, we have, if the night sphere is about domestic life, the A sphere is public, out in the public. So this starts to open up once we start to go to school, go to church, go into public, to the rec center or the mall. We become exposed to other influences. We go over to the friend's house or whatever and meet their parents or whatever it is. And this is really like the public worldview. This is the consensus worldview. This is what they tell us that you're supposed to believe, and this is what how you're supposed to behave. So the faculties here are really our belief systems and our rational faculties. And but the A sphere is controlled by the institutions and the establishment. The powers that be control this A sphere, and they have all the resources basically. So, they tell us what we're supposed to believe, and we really have to comply with what they say, or else they're going to shut us out. They're really extorting us here at the A sphere. So they're using their experts, the guys in the white lab coats and the guys with all the initials after their name, to tell us what we're supposed to believe, and then we believe it. Now sometimes they tell us the truth, and that makes it easier to enter the A sphere. But if they're telling us lies, then we end up with kind of contradictions, because our own experience tells us one thing, but they're telling us another thing. So we either have to kind of reject our own experience, which is really a reversal of the A sphere, or a twisting of the A sphere, or inverting, so that we deny our own experiences in favor of what they tell us. And we do that in order to get the resources and the status that's involved, because they tell us that, everybody believes that. Everybody knows that. What, you don't believe that? And they kind of use peer pressure, or this kind of pressure, to make you recant your own ideas and accept theirs. And then when you do that, they reward you. So we're under pressure to invert our eighth sphere, and when we do that, we end up getting stuck in the A sphere. Now, if we don't invert the A sphere, we can just get in there, give it lip service, say yeah, sure, whatever, just give me my stuff and let me go. I'll come back tomorrow. I'll get some more. So that's basically. The A sphere is really, you should be visiting the A sphere, but don't stay. And it's because it's only really the third of our faculties that we're opening. If we stay there, we're stuck and we'll never engage in any type of spiritual evolution. So we need to move on to the next sphere, which is the seventh sphere. If the eighth sphere is about the public, the real world, the seventh sphere is the imaginary world. So the seventh sphere is what we have when we have gone into the eighth sphere and we smelled a rat. We're like, I don't believe that, and there was something wrong with that, and that's pretty foolish. And we come over here and we imagine something better. We imagine this being better, and we use other things as well as imagination here at the seventh sphere, such as inspiration. We may have seen somebody else do the things that we do and become inspired and motivated. We also have our intuition, which is really triggered by our curiosity. If we're like, wow, I wonder what I could do to make this better. We wonder. And then that wonder takes us inside and we kind of get into our heart and we are able to receive answers. Okay, this is what you can do. Now, that answer may not be translated correctly by us, so we need to review it and verify it to make sure. So we have to verify our intuitions. We also have our creative spark, our ability to put things into new configurations, and also into pleasing configurations through our pleasure principle. So these things all come together and they form our creative product, which ultimately is our higher calling. This is what we have to offer to make this better. This is what we've come up with using all our skills. And our higher calling is really a lifelong pledge to attempt to improve the world, not by what they tell us where, oh, you want to be a banker or you should be a teacher or you can be a nurse. They put you in all these broad categories. But here you're saying, I'm going to be myself and the best version of myself that allows me to improve the universe, to contribute to the universe in the best way that I can. So you're coming up with creative life, but you also have creative products here, such as songs or poems or plays or inventions that purport to improve upon the eighth sphere. But when you put it all into your higher calling, that propels you up the tree. So then you move to the sixth sphere, which is really our free will faculty. This is really our center, our outer core, but really the center of our being. Like if there was a map, it would say you are here. So that's what I mean. We are here, and what our free will adds up to is our ability to pay attention and our ability to make decisions. So free will is not free. You have to pay and you have to make. And to pay attention, we find ourselves paying attention to the lower part of the tree. We keep our focus on this comfort zone that we have become accustomed to. But we also have decision-making ability. So we can decide to turn our attention around and focus our attention on our higher aspects that haven't even been accessed, yet. So we focus on our higher elements, and we start here with the fifth sphere. Now this incidentally requires a good deal of courage, because at the start, we're paying attention to this comfort zone, and now we're paying attention to the unknown primarily. So we're kind of, it's a scary proposition. But if we can do that, then we'll focus on the next one, which is the fifth sphere, which is our sense of justice, or our sense of fairness, or sense of right and wrong. And we can visualize this as like a mirror, a reflection. This is really like the law of karma, cause and effect. As you sow, so shall you reap. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. What comes around goes around. So our action, what we do, then reflects back to us. And the reflection is based on our violence, waste, and violation. So if we act violently, we will get a violent reaction. And we may claim to be victims. We may say, oh my gosh, I'm having the worst luck. Why do these bad things keep happening to me? But if we are paying enough attention, eventually we'll recognize, well, the reason it's happening to me is my own doing in the first place. If I wasn't acting so violently, then I wouldn't get this violence in return. A lot of times this comes up in the case of what you would call remote violence, where you do violence to somebody without knowing that you've done it. We do this a lot in the West. Say if you're supporting slave labor overseas. So you're supporting slave labor overseas by buying the product or whatever. That contains a small amount of violence that you are responsible for. And so when that comes back to you, you may not notice it. But if you are paying attention, eventually you will notice it. And you will be able to recognize that if you ameliorate your behavior, then you will not produce that karma. So as a long-term result, the karma is no longer a punisher to you, but it is eventually becomes a protector, because you become immune. If you don't create these things, you don't create you don't commit any violence, violation, or waste, then you don't get any back. And so you are protected. Now, there has to be a groundwork set on this, which is really in our habits of self-sacrifice. We need to have some self-sacrifice beforehand, basically to balance out our past life karma. So we might have some baggage coming into this life that we have to also to manage. And so we have to live that down. And so we have to pay in advance for that, more or less. Okay, then whereas the fifth sphere is really about the enforcement of the law and order, the fourth sphere is about the articulation of that law and order. And that comes usually in the form of a cosmology or an ancient holy book. Pretty much all traditions have something, a creation story, and then human creation story, and a relationship between humans and nature and or God, and then a relationship between how all the laws of nature are put together. So this encapsulates what is usually written in the holy books. And it also includes the laws of physics and chemistry and mathematics and ethics. So this is what if we can put our attention onto this, then we are able to make kind of have a better understanding of how to clean up this relationship. So this really informs this. So this really adds up to our universal law, universal love, and universal language. And so we have, there are many of these different cosmologies to choose from. And probably the best thing is not to choose, but to study as many of them as you can. And then to be able to, again, use your intuition to go inside and try to sift through them. what part of which ones, make sense to me and that I sound right to me, feel right to me. And, it's not like as what's convenient for me, which is kind of like an A-sphere idea. The A-sphere is the law is a commandment. It's an order. And here the law is an observation. It's what people have observed about how the real world really works over time. Okay, so then we move up to the abyss, and the abyss is really our psychic powers. This adds up to our psychic receptivity and our psychic heat. And our psychic receptivity is our ability to basically to tune into and recognize omens. And our omens come from, synchronicities or recurring themes, recurring names, recurring numbers, deja vu, anything that is like bucking the laws of probability, where it's like, wow, that was really weird. That was something that was way out of the ordinary. That's something, if it registers, then that is something to pay attention to, because that is an omen, and that's the universe's language for something important happening. It's really physically a magnetic charge. And then the second part is the psychic heat. That's to be able to act upon the omen, which is as a result of the omen will contain a prescribed action within it. And the psychic heat requires, again, courage, because you have to be able to act upon the omen, which is to stand in the face of fear again. Okay, now the 3, 2, and 1 at the top of the tree are our divine aspects within. 3 is omnipotence, 2 is omniscience, and 1 is omnipresence. All powerful, all knowing, and all everything all at once, eternally. The third sphere, omnipotence, is really kind of like the ability to culminate our mission, to do the things that we set out to do at the beginning. And we have to kind of really access each sphere. It's a full, comprehensive mission. And we do that through mantra, among other things, which is like chanting the sound of letters of the alphabet over and over and over again. And by doing that, we open up that sphere. So that's part of that process there, through sound, synchronized sound. And then at the second sphere, this is wisdom, our omniscience or wisdom. This is our ability to solve all our problems. And we do this by being able to shut our mind off to the point that we can actually calm our mind so that we can see through the mind and see all the way to the center of the mind, where we can see the image of the solution of our problem. So the image that we see at the center is the solution to the problem. And unlike the A-sphere, where the A-sphere problem solved by thinking, that creates unforeseen consequences. But this doesn't. This just solves the problem right out. But it is very difficult to get to that level of meditation. You have to be able to shut your mind off for, an hour or more at a time. And so there is a surrogate, which is called the oracle or the divination system, like a tarot deck, where you ask of some type of chance process a question and you get the answers. It has difficulties also because it has to be interpreted. So you really have to understand the language that your tarot deck or whatever it is speaking. Okay, then we have the 1 at the top of the tree. This is omnipresence, and this is really our unifying faculty. This is our highest center, our highest self at our deepest center. And this comes as a result of being able to not only see to the center of our mind, but to actually be at the center of our mind, to merge with our higher self. And when we do that, we unify, because this singularity at the center is at the center of everything. So all things have this at the center, so we're unified with all things at this level. So this is really the everything of the universe, where the zero is the nothing, the nothingness of the universe, or the mystery, because it's not part of the universe. The zero is outside of the universe, whereas the one is the whole universe. But they're both the same because they're both part of the creator. So the creator has an aspect that is not part of this universe, and that is the zero. And that's a mystery because we only have indirect access to this through this. Okay, so that is the review of the 12 different major categories of the tree. Now, when I teach from a 12 by 12 approach, which is by taking the whole tree, shrinking it down, and applying it to each one of the 12. And so that is a total of 144 or 12 by 12 aspects. And those are the minor aspects of the tree, which I've compiled into a guide, which I'd be happy to share with you if you'd like to click the link in the description for free. And every day at the end of the video, we go through one of those 144 different minor aspects after we go through the 12 major aspects. Today we're looking at number 11, where do emotions come from and what are they? Number 11 corresponds to a 10th sphere thing, so it's within the 10th sphere. This is, survival instinct, animal consciousness, wild animal. And then it's the first fractal within the 10th sphere. So this is really about the essence of what's going on here, the center of it. And, it also has to do with unification. Okay, so this is called emotional spectrum. Stage number 11 is an intro to emotions, what they are, where they come from, and how we respond to them. At the junction of the 10th and 9th spheres, emotions are a survival reaction, but they are a huge drain of energy. Emotion means a waste of motion, a lack of conservation. But don't resist the emotion. Experience it. But don't take it too seriously. Let it flow and then let it go. We have little control over them. So though one cannot eliminate emotions, they are eventually to be transcended. Emotions are manifestations of states of tension and disequilibrium. They put us in a state of readiness for action, and they often result in action. They often result in ineffective action. But readiness for action does not have to result in action at all. Not if you don't take your emotions too seriously. Emotion is not good at making important decisions in our lives, but it can bring about an impulse that causes us to make rash decisions before there is any time to reflect upon consequences. Emotions or charges are derived from instincts, current, via the cerebellum or vibration. Primarily as a survival reaction, emotions are just the domestication of instinct, our lowest form of expression, our residue from animals. Emotions, our temperament, depends upon temperature, pressure, and humidity conditions. But this is just a resistance to current, not a vibration. Therefore, the emotions affect our pulse, blood pressure, respiration, body temperature, etc. The hottest emotions are anger-related, and the coldest are fear-based. The wettest ones are sadness and sorrow. Some of the pressure-related ones are impatience on the one hand and denial on the other. Without conscience, emotion will seek pleasure and avoid pain. When we accept the content of our emotions, they become the major motivator of our actions for as long as they last. The manipulation of our emotions allow the powers that be to have our number and our letter too. At this stage in our development, emotion dominates reason. It's far ahead in the budding competition. Emotion has been around from the start, while reason at this stage is still embryonic. Okay, that is a short summary of number 11, emotional spectrum. And that is the first fractal of the 10th sphere. And that is the selection for today of the 144 different fractal faculties or minor aspects of the tree of life. Thank you for sticking around to the end. And there'll be plenty more to talk about this at a later time. But right now, you can stay tuned for tomorrow, where I will select another one of the 144 fractal faculties, and we will review that, along with the same introduction from a very slightly different angle. And you know, it's good to listen. I know it's a little bit tedious because I'm recording kind of the same thing over and over again. But each time I record the explanation of the major aspects of the tree of life, it's a bit different. And that's how you learn it, is through repetition, especially when the repetition isn't exactly the same. You know, there's a new element or two thrown in each time that will kind of augment your current understanding, but the core of it is pretty much the same. And so we want to, you know, kind of really establish the core in your memory, and then be able to, you know, add to your understanding in bits and pieces. So that's the thinking there. Anyway, please hit the like button. You can share the video with friends. You can subscribe to the channel, make constructive comments in the comment section. Again, click the link in the description to get my guide to the 144 fractal faculties. And you can also donate directly to me through Cash App and Venmo, listed in the description. And stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Have a great day.